Hello, everybody. My name is Sharon Spurlock, and I'm the Senior Director of Family Education at the St. Louis Arc. And I'm very excited to share with you today a framework of principles and tools that we can implement to help anybody have a better quality of life because they're able to control their planning and problem solving around their own vision for the future. This framework is called Charting the LifeCourse, and it was designed to be used by you, your family members, your colleagues, anybody really, to organize those thoughts, clarify the vision, and problem solve. And once you've done all that, you're able to navigate with the people that are controlling resources, whether that's funding sources, legislators, maybe family members that see things differently than you. You can advocate for what you need. I'm going to start with introducing myself using a Charting the LifeCourse tool called a one-page profile. I really like the one-page profile because it's really a snapshot of some key things that people can know about you. It helps me to organize what I want to tell people and to give them a lot of information in a really quick amount of time. I have a number of one-page profiles, including a profile when I'm coaching people, a profile what things look like when I'm a navigator, and also a personal profile. So this is sort of a generic professional profile. Really, it just covers me, though. The blue box, the blue circle, is things that people admire about me, or things that I think are unique to me. People like my creativity and my positive energy. I am genuinely interested in other people's success and try to share useful tools. So here I am today sharing this with you because this is really, for me, key to my happiness at work, is making sure that other people have the best possible resources to create the lives they want. I think I'm loud and funny. Some people might not agree with the funny part, but I enjoy a good laugh. I find humor in even dark situations, and I'm not afraid of a challenge. So if I bring ideas to you, don't ever be afraid to say you don't like them. I'm happy to pivot and come up with more ideas and use my creativity. So not at all a problem if you see things a different way than I do. The square to the bottom left is what's important to me. The first one I wrote was getting to know people personally. I think it's when you're going to be in a role like this, knowing who you're talking to really helps build trust. It helps you understand that person's past experiences and their culture and how it impacts how they see the world. I like to be included in decision making, both large and small. So whether you're deciding where we're going to go for lunch or thinking about the big picture of where my company is going to go in the next year, I want to know what is being discussed and being able to contribute. And I like to be able to connect and contribute in my community as well. So I have a number of roles in other organizations. I have neighbors and family and friends that are very important to me that I stay connected to. On a somewhat smaller level, but still equally important, I really value a good meal and a glass of wine. My second home away from home is New Orleans, and so I really am one of those people that thinks about what I'm going to eat and where I'm going to eat it, and it makes me really happy when I have something that's delicious. And then I'm a very outgoing person, but after a day of talking to people and teaching, I really need time by myself. So I need a little quiet time to read, stare at the television, listen to music, and just kind of decompress. So those are some things that are important to me that I think people can benefit from knowing. And then how to support me. If you're going to be around me for any length of time, this can be really helpful for you to know what to do when I'm struggling. So if I'm being negative, I am probably overwhelmed because I'm typically a really positive person. So that might mean that you could offer to help me, to delegate something that I need to do. Maybe just tell me to take a little breather, give me a little extra support so that I can get back where I need to be. I like to know the big picture goal and then have some fun and being able to be creative in how to solve it. So I'm not great with micromanagement. I'm happy to share a vision about where things are going to go, and then let's play around with the details. And again, not all my ideas are going to be the right ideas, but I enjoy the process. And then I like having flexibility in my schedule because I do have so many connections in the community. I want to maintain my friendships with people of all abilities. So sometimes I'll grab a coffee or lunch with people. Sometimes I need to go to a meeting outside of the ARC in the middle of the day. I have a lot of opportunity to be flexible, and I think it benefits both me, the community, and the St. Louis ARC. So that's a little bit about me. You could think about this one-page profile and how you might use it to share information about you with other people. I've seen people use this as introductions to IEP or ISP meetings. We use them, as I said, at work to introduce new colleagues, but also to share with families what our priorities are and what we feel like we are skilled at. I love the idea of using this in a business for a new job to be able to have a new employee tell you what it is they need. So many uses for the one-page profile. I'm going to kind of start from the beginning of where did Charting the Life course come from, because I think it's important to know that this was a framework that was developed by people who are family members of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and by the professionals that support those family members. There was a convening of all these people in 2012, and it was called the Wing Spread Conference. Everybody got together and started talking about what do we know about how to best support families that include a person with a disability. And during the course of that meeting, they did a lot of brainstorming and gathering of information and kind of landed on this framework of principles that we knew these are the ways that families respond best. This is the way that we should be doing our work. And the meeting generated a group of 5 states, including the state of Missouri, who said, we believe that this is important enough to form a community of practice, a national community of practice where we start developing a framework and tools that will allow us to use these tools that we know, use these principles that we know are best in supporting families in a really consistent way and spread that across all states. So those 5 states got a federal contract to create this framework and platform. And I'm really proud to say that the final product came out of our own University of Missouri, Kansas City, UCEDD. And just to be clear, UCEDD is a University Center on Excellence for Developmental Disability. It's a federally funded center, at one in each state, and ours is in Kansas City. They do great work, which we'll talk about at the end, but our UCEDD led the development of Charting the LifeCourse framework. It started with those 5 original community of practice states, and as you can see from the map, the dark blue states all are in the community of practice now, which means that at the statewide level, they're committed to using these same tools I'm sharing with you today. The light blue states are in process of formalizing their relationship. And as you can see on the next slide, there are 43 states that have ambassadors, which are people that have been trained to use the LifeCourse tools in a really deep and consistent way. Lots of people have been trained as ambassadors, lots of ongoing training going on. And the UMKC LifeCourse Nexus has also got 78 contracts. So they're working with organizations around the country to help them figure out, how can I take these ideas and really change the way we do our work on a daily basis? I'm going to go back one because I want to just talk about these graphics. One of the things that I really like about Charting the Life course is that it's a very visual system. So for most of us who are visual learners, it's really helpful to have these pictures in our head or on pieces of paper that help us think about the principles. So we'll talk about these principles in a minute, but this one is the core belief principle that all people have the right to live, love, work, play, and pursue their goals in the community. So the triangle is the all triangle. This is a funny name. This one's called the 3 buckets, and we'll talk about what that means, the buckets of that you need to fill in order to make informed decisions. This graphic describes the person who is at the center of all decision making, but that person is surrounded by the people that are family, whether that's families that they're born into or that they create, and that the person really has to be considered within the context of that family so that everyone's needs are met as changes are made, as goals are pursued. These graphics down here reflect 6 life domains that kind of reflect the holistic life that all of us live, including our employment, our housing, our health, our safety and security, our relationships and spirituality, and our advocacy and engagement. This graphic is about goal planning and setting a vision, that you've got a vision for the future and also for what you don't want, and an action and outcome path to get to that vision. Right here in the center is the integrated support star, and that star is the problem solving tool in Charting the Life course, in that there are multiple ways to approach goal setting steps to pursue a goal or to tackle a problem, and we want to consider all of them. And then this symbol is about those changes in the system. That once we adopt these tools and principles and learn a different way to do our work, it impacts the way we organize as a company. It impacts the way we think about things as individuals, and eventually it impacts laws and structures of how we receive services. So now we will move on to the core belief. As I said before, this is related to that graphic of the all triangle. All people and their families have the right to live, love, work, play, and pursue their life aspirations in their community. It's important to know this because Charting the Life course has really been developed. It started out being about people with disabilities, but as it progressed, it really became about all people. So I've used this tool with myself, with family members, elders, foster systems are using this, school systems are using this for all students, not just students with disabilities. It's being picked up in the healthcare system, some to use these tools and concepts. So it's really a valuable tool for anybody. So I hope as you learn more about it, you'll think about how you can play it for yourself, for your family, within your organization, whether you work with people with disabilities or not. There's many applications. So as I said, Charting the Life course was created for people and families of all abilities and ages to explore life possibilities and be the ones to share their ideas, their hopes, and their fears. And because it is driven by that person in the center of the decision making, a lot of times they set lofty goals for themselves, and we set higher expectations for people. It's designed to help people problem solve and actually create steps towards the goals that they want. And then because of that, they can navigate their future and advocate for the vision that they have. So we're going to stay here for quite a while. I want to talk about every part of this graphic, because this one graphic can really walk you through all of the principles in Charting the Life course. In the center is the person, and that is a person, not necessarily the person with a disability. This is the person who is approaching the framework and thinking about their goals, their transitions, the things that they want to do in their life. And the person is surrounded by the people in their lives. So person in the context of their family. So for example, if I am a person with a disability and I want to work, I have to also consider how that impacts the rest of my family. Is that going to make a change for people financially? How am I going to get there? Who is going to transport me? And how does that impact my family? What are the other things that might happen, and how do we address all of that? The other cool thing about it is that because these principles have tools attached to them, there are tools in Charting the Life course for the person in the center of the decision making, but also for their close family and friends, so that everybody has a voice at the table. The person's voice is amplified, but the voice of the family and others is considered as a valuable resource. Here's the 6 life domains, and we'll start with advocacy and engagement. This is really that ability to make decisions for yourself, to have choices in your day, to be able to identify things that are important to you, both in your personal life and in your community, and having space to speak up about those things. So we really look at different ways people choose to advocate for themselves, think about their ability to communicate effectively. All of those things fall into advocacy and engagement. The top one is daily life and employment. And this is really all aspects of your everyday life. So depending on your age, it might be about your early childhood daycare, or it could be about your school or your job or volunteerism or how you shape your retirement as an elder. In addition to where you spend your day, this is also about your routines. And those routines can be daily routines like how you like to get up in the morning, what kinds of activities are important to you during the course of a day. But it can also be about your cultural and family rituals. What do you do on holidays? What happens at different times of the year that are really key, important things to you, and thinking about how to honor those and support them. So that's all the things that are included in daily life and employment. Social and spirituality is about our friends, our social activities, and also about mindfulness and any faith practice that you may have. So do you have access to be able to participate in that faith practice? Do you have the tools you need to make plans with your friends and connect with your friends? What about romance? Are you interested in having a more intimate relationship with somebody, and how is that supported? So that's all the things that are considered as part of your social and spirituality domain. The domain of safety and security includes your personal safety, community safety, and resources like financial resources and legal supports that help you to be secure. So here we're going to be looking at things like whether your home is safe for you, whether it's safe for you to be out and about in your neighborhood. Are you safe when you're in the community? What kinds of tools do you have for emergencies? Do you know what to do in an emergency situation? Do you have the financial resources to feel confident that you're going to meet your daily needs? Do you have a bank account? Do you have enough income to put food on the table? And it can also be about your decision-making supports. Do you make all your own decisions? Are there people that you rely on to help you think through decisions? Do you have any legal supports for that, including a power of attorney or guardianship? All those things fall under safety and security. Down below, we have community living. So I mentioned earlier, community living is about where you live, who you live with, what kind of resources you have in your home and in your neighborhood. So we're going to look at things like any kind of accessibility needs in the home, whether you're able to get around and get to the washer and dryer, or take care of other things in your kitchen that need to be done. Can you walk safely in your community? Do you have transportation to get where you need to go? Do you know your neighbors? Those are things that might be included in your community living domain. And then last and absolutely not least, healthy living. And this is a broad area to think about in terms of your physical health, your mental health, and behavioral health, and both preventative health and responsive health. So, do you see a doctor regularly? Do you take your medications as prescribed? What kinds of things are you doing to ensure that you are healthy as far as physical routines, exercise, nutrition? What about mental health? Do you know what to do when you have stress and anxiety? Do you have tools to handle emotional upset? What kind of things help you to get through a day and be successful? So lots and lots of fun things to consider there. So we've got person in the context of family, life domains. Then we're going to go out to this outer ring of discovery and navigation, connection and networking, and goods and services. And those are our three buckets. And I think about filling the three buckets so that you can make a good decision that you feel confident about. Usually I talk about buying a car when I talk about this one, but today I'm just going to start easy and talk about what I'm going to do about dinner tonight. So first I have to know, what are my options for dinner? Do I have food in my refrigerator? Do I know how to cook? Do I have the skills to find a recipe? What are all the things I can do to think through what my options are for dinner? So this is gathering knowledge and figuring out what's available to me. Down here is connection and networking. Do I know, have I had meals that other people have cooked for me that I thought were really delicious? Can I pick up the phone and call family or friend and say, hey, would you like to have dinner together? Let's do something together. So this is all about the people that you might have in your life that can help you decide, yep, that's the best decision for me today. And then finally, goods and services. Do I have the tools to cook? Do I have food available to me? Do I have restaurants nearby me, or apps that'll help me understand how to make a meal? So there's lots and lots of things to consider when you want goods and services. I talked about how I've used this before thinking about buying a car. During COVID, I had to buy a used car, and I did all kinds of research to figure out what I wanted. I talked to my friends that were really car savvy about, things that I thought were important in a car, like fuel efficiency and safety. Got their opinions about it. But when I went to buy a car, there weren't any cars to be had. All the used cars were being snapped up. The supply chain was used up. So each of these three things is really essential to being comfortable with the decision that you made. Ultimately, I made a decision I didn't think I would ever make so that I could have access to the services. I leased a car, and I had to go back and circle back to discovery and navigation and connection and talk to people who had been involved with leasing a car to find out what that would mean for me and whether it was a good decision or not. So, so two examples about how you might think about the buckets principle. And then on the very outside is our integrated support star. As I said earlier, this is the way we think about problem solving within Charting the Life course or tackling a goal. And when we start with our own personal strengths and assets. If I'm going to tackle a goal of getting dinner on the table tonight, what is it that I bring to the table? I may be a pretty good cook. Maybe I can read a recipe. Maybe I am great with social media and I can pull up one of those TikTok videos that shows me how to cook. Maybe I'm super charming and can convince somebody else to invite me over for dinner. So anything I bring to the table can be considered under personal strengths and assets. Relationship based. Like I said, if I can use my charm, maybe there's somebody I know that would love to have me over for dinner. Maybe there's somebody that would like to help me prepare dinner that I'll keep the food, but you help me how to figure out how to do this. Maybe I have a relationship with somebody that can help me understand if I get stuck in a piece of the recipe. So this is everybody you know. It's family, it's friends, neighbors, co-workers. Could be people you know from a club or a sports group or from a faith-based practice. So think about your relationships broadly and think about how you would deploy each one, because the person that I use to talk to about what to put dinner on the table is not necessarily the same person I talk to about what kind of car I should buy. So it's great to have a range of relationships that you can tap into. On the left is technology, a very important part of the problem solving wheel. Technology is becoming more and more accessible and inexpensive. And when you're relying on technology, you don't have to rely on another person to show up, which can be really helpful. Technology is any kind of tool. So grandma's written recipe could be a tool in technology, but so could a website about how to cook something or a video about how to prepare something. Maybe I use an app to store recipes. Maybe I use some sort of accessible tools like color-coded chef cooking tools to help me measure when I can't read. So there's all kinds of things that you can use that are both low tech and high tech to solve your problem. Community-based. Maybe I would go to a grocery store and buy some groceries, or a farmer's market. I could access restaurants in my area, or maybe there's a community meal at a church. So community-based resources are resources that anybody can tap into to meet their needs, and solve a problem or achieve a goal. So maybe you go to the library and check out a cookbook. Maybe there's a park in your neighborhood where there's a farmer's market and you can walk around your park. Schools, hospitals, all those things, grocery stores and restaurants are all community-based resources. And then finally, eligibility-based resources are things you're eligible for because of a certain characteristic you have. That characteristic could be a disability. It could be an organization you belong to. It could be military service. There's all kinds of ways that people can be eligibility specific. Maybe you've served in the military and you have access to a canteen that has lower priced food. Maybe you have a disability, or you are low income and you're able to tap into food stamps, or a pantry kind of actually pantries would be community based. Maybe you have benefits through your insurance that allow you to get some sort of a discount on things. So the many eligibility based type resources that we can tap into. So that's a very comprehensive overview of these principles. And before I move on, I want to say that it's important that we're able to think about the principles and use those, whether we ever actually use the tools that are associated with them. LifeCourse is not about the pieces of paper. It's about how we think about things. And so, as you can see, I haven't even shown you a piece of paper yet. Because what happens with LifeCourse is that you've got this framework of ideas. And when you put all 8 of them together, it really helps to create a common language and a common path. Whether you are an educator, a parent, a person with a disability, an employer, medical professional, you are going to be able to talk about these principles and navigate these principles in the same ways, which is part of the reason I really became enamored with Charting the LifeCourse. I thought about how often families go from one system to the next as their family member grows up, and they have to learn a whole new language. I think they're always at a disadvantage when they come from early childhood into school. You have to learn the school lingo. When you leave school, you have to learn what the adult services land looks like. And it really becomes daunting and makes it hard for you to be the one to speak up. So when you use Charting the LifeCourse, you can take the lead. We all speak the same language, and that really impacts our day-to-day practices so that we can change what meetings look like. We can change the way we deliver services because they're being led by the person in the center who's creating a vision for their future. And that then moves us into changing the way we do things, changing the way things are done across the world we live in. And one example I'll give you of that, I've been doing research lately about sensory friendly spaces and accessible spaces in our community. And everybody for a long time has met physical needs in large cultural institutions. There's a lot of accessibility physically. They've got different kinds of resources there, but something really interesting has happened over the last 5 years because people with autism and dyslexia and ADHD have talked about their needs. People have recognized that in order to really serve the full community, they need to create spaces that will allow people to decompress and reboot. And so if you go around St. Louis, you'll notice most of our large institutions now have some sort of sensory resources. They may have a resilience room or a quiet space. A lot of them have sensory kits at the information desk. It's very interesting to see how when we start to use some of these principles and talk about what we need, then the world around us changes. So I'm going to go back now to life domains and just talk about a few other nuances related to the life domains. One of the things you'll notice as you start to really think things through using these principles is that our lives are very interconnected. If I am going to pursue a new job, it might impact something related to my housing situation. Maybe I need to find a new bus route, or maybe I'm going to have to find new childcare kinds of resources. Maybe I'm going to make new friends or lose some friends in my previous job, and I need to think about that. Maybe my new job will create some health challenges or some health benefits. Maybe I'll get new insurance that'll be great, but I will be more sedentary and I need to think about different things. So all of these things play together, and we have to consider them as a group kind of a thing. The other thing is that within the life course, as you start to look at the tools, you can use each domain and deep dive into the tools through the lens of just one area of your life. So maybe it's just too overwhelming to think about your big picture of your future life, but you'd like to think about your healthy life and what does that look like for you? What do you not want? And how do you tackle that? So there's specific tools at lifecoursetools.com under the life domains tab, where you'll be able to see specific tools designed for each of these life domains. This is the trajectory. I find the trajectory to be the typical starting place for people that are learning about charting the life course because it's pretty intuitive. We start off thinking about what your vision for a good life or vision for what you don't want is. A lot of times people struggle to figure out what their good life looks like, but most of the time knowing what you don't want is pretty straightforward. I can tell you that I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be lonely. I don't want to be unhealthy. I don't want to be alienated from my friends and family. So there's lots of things that I can list under what I don't want, which might then guide me to think about my good life. In my good life, I'm able to make enough money to meet my needs and have some left over to travel. I'm going to see my friends and family regularly. I'm going to be able to make the decisions that are important to me and live in the place I want to live with the person I want to live with. So many things that we can kind of tag into here for the vision for your good life. And then I want to talk about these arrows because these are the real key to starting to establish goals that are going to help you move towards your vision for the good life. So thinking about how do I get to these places where these things happen? Maybe I'm going to need to have some new experiences where I learn some new skills, experience some new work opportunities. Maybe I need to build some of my resilience and learn how to cope with disappointment and failure so that if friends let me down, I can bounce back and kind of move up. Maybe I need to join some groups and try some new activities so that I can find new friends. And sometimes you focus on this arrow that goes down, things that if you continue to do them or if they're continue to be placed in your way will draw you in the wrong direction. So sometimes that means health issues that might stop you from being able to go where you want to go. How are you going to address your health issues? Sometimes it's being overly dependent on somebody. If I'm going to get a job or live on my own, I may need to stop relying on family to wake me up in the morning or cook my meals, those kinds of things. Maybe it's barriers like bullying or isolation. How do I find people that will lift me up and build my own social skills so that I know what to do when somebody is bullying me or not considering me? So your action planning might be all on the above the line kind of things that are going to help you up here. But if something's going to really hold you back, it's really hard not to address that. If you really, really want to get a job and you have some problems with your social skills or your hygiene, you might need to address those things so that you can get to this vision for your good life. Here's our integrated support star. It is a really fun, colorful form. Colors mean things in life course, so you will always find anything green is eligibility specific. What I want to share with you here is that you can find on, again, that website, fully filled out integrated support stars. because a lot of times having a blank piece of paper is very daunting. So if you look at this one, it gives you some ideas of things to think about under personal strengths and assets. Do I have connections that are mine that I can really pull out here? Do I have abilities and skills? What about my personality characteristics? How do all those things play together? So you can even use this as a kind of circle the ones that resonate for you. Oh yeah, I have an iPad, or I am a member of a church. You can start to identify resources that you can tap into. And I think that's important. There is a pre-filled out, or we call them cheat sheet star, for each domain in Charting the Life course. So when you go to the website, there's a page for integrated supports, and you can find a health star, a safety star, one for each of those 6 domains. So I want to give you some examples before we end today. I love this example of Gavin, who's going into a very transitional part of his life. He's getting into high school, and that's a great time for young people to take responsibility and think about what they want their high school life to look like. So Gavin's done a portfolio, and in Charting the Life course, a portfolio is a combination of a one-page profile, a trajectory, and an integrated support star. Those 3 documents together are a wealth of information to be able to share with people that are important to you, whether it's Gavin telling his family what he wants his high school life to look like, or his teacher, or his best friend. So we're going to start here with his one-page profile. Gavin says people appreciate that he's honest, he's a rule follower, he's very literal, he's smart, and he is detail oriented. So those are really important things that Gavin brings to the table. What's important to him is his family, friends, pets, playing sports, playing video games, and being included. I bet that's a pretty universal list for most 15-year-olds. And then how to support me. He needs clear instructions because he's a pretty black and white guy. So tell him exactly what you want and what it looks like. He likes jokes, but because he's literal, he can sometimes feel like you're making the joke on him. So he needs to understand you're joking. And he likes to be in a calm environment with no yelling. I think those are 3 really important things that his teachers will be so happy to know so that they can support him in the coming year. And Gavin's trajectory here is what we call a planning trajectory, and it includes your past life experiences and how they impact what's going on in the future. But we always start over here on the right side with your vision for a good life. So Gavin's good life involves playing sports, lots of sports, making new friends, getting good grades, learning life skills, and preparing himself for after high school, and getting a job or learning job skills. This is such an important chunk of information. I can see goals and planning around each of these areas for Gavin to really be having a great freshman year experience. And as a teacher, if I'm having to write an IEP, tons of information about what I can focus on to help him build his skills. Also, in the what I don't want area, some things he'll have to get over, a lot of homework, teachers yelling. So teacher needs to know that if they yell or get frustrated with him, that's going to probably not bring out the best in him. And he doesn't like people making him feel like he's a problem. So these are things that the teacher needs to know, but there also might be some work that Gavin can do to address some of these things about zoning out and managing homework. So let's go over to the past life experiences. In the past, he was involved in a variety of sports. He's done chores. He goes to a youth group and has friends that he hangs out with. And he's done some of his own research about jobs that interest him. That's pretty amazing for a 15-year-old. That's a really good list of background information. And he also is able to articulate that not asking for help when he needed it really put him in a bad place in the past. Teachers yelling and getting mad was bad for him, and his own zoning out and not paying attention was bad for him. So these are things that he self-identified as areas to work through, work towards. So up at the future life, he wants to try out for sports and maybe learn a new sport, join some clubs, use his time in study hall wisely, pick classes that interest him, job shadow somebody, and advocate for himself. And he put that in capital letters, which is pretty interesting. Again, as a teacher, this is the breakdown for goal setting. How am I going to help Gavin learn to study in effective ways? How am I going to find opportunities for him to job shadow or build his advocacy skills? And then as a family member, how do I help him make decisions about a new sport to try or the clubs that might be fun? Down at the bottom, not asking for help, not advocating for himself, and not learning ways to focus his attention. Those are things he's got to be on the lookout for. What I really like about this too is I think at this age with teenagers, so often it's a little battle between family and authority figures and the teenager where you're pushing back and forth trying to get the person to do what you want. When you've got this spelled out by Gavin about what he wants, you can come back to it and say, Gavin, you said that you really wanted to be able to speak up for yourself, but I see we're in this situation, and what do you think you can do about it? Do you need some help to think it through? How can we build that skill? Gavin, it seems like maybe you're having trouble focusing in this class. What are the things that are hard for you to focus on? What are some things you think might help you? And again, I think it starts to build that youth accountability. They've said that this is important to them, so they need to take some action. And I think, again, helps them to think through what is going to help me to be able to tackle some of these things. And that's where we get to the star, where you start looking at what you need to do that. And this is Gavin's star on the right. I'm going to mention that this is a star on the left from an older lady, Mary, about her self-care, but we're going to really lean into Gavin's star today. This is a really a preferred star for me, and it's called a split star, where you've got what Gavin's got available to him now, but also what are some things that he can add to his toolkit so he continues to build his skills. So we'll start again, as we always do, with Gavin's personal strengths and advocates. He said he's a self-advocate, so he understands the value of advocacy. He's honest, he follows rules, he's smart, he's a good friend, he pays attention to details, knows a lot about sports and animals, and does his chores and housekeeping. It's a great list for a young man to have all those skills under his belt, and I bet he felt really good writing all those things down and being able to claim them. He's also really forward thinking. He wants to build some skills with budgeting and get his own debit card. He wants to get a driver's license, work or volunteer, and job shadow. Again, really great list of skills to add to his resume, help him move forward in his life. He's got specific technology that he already has access to, but he's able to say here, you know what? It's time for me to get an alarm clock and electronic reminders. I need to take responsibility for that. I might want to get a Fitbit or an Apple Watch to manage some of my health related to the sports I'm going to be in. So if you go all the way around, you can see how he's been able to identify the things he currently has in place and the things that he may want to add as he moves forward. And don't forget, Gavin can make one of these, and Gavin's mom can make one, and Gavin's teacher can make one, and they can compare them in a variety of settings, which I think helps Gavin to think more broadly. Maybe Gavin in reality only thought of the first three things in each of these categories, but other people have presented their stars, and he thought, yep, I'm going to take that one and that one and that one because those all make sense for my future. So that is the end of our Gavin example. I hope that helps to inspire you to go out and use these tools. I find that if you use the tools for yourself, it's a really great starting place to fully understand them and to build your own confidence in using them. I did want to let people know, I've mentioned the LifeCourse twice now, but if you go to the LifeCourse tools website, look under the tab network, you'll find chapters, and there's a Missouri chapter for everybody in Missouri that uses Charting the LifeCourse. This chapter page can tell you about available trainings. It can show you who's trained to be an ambassador in your area. Provides you with a lot of access to ongoing free webinars and question and answer sessions and good life groups. So I encourage you to check out the chapter, sign up for the Good Life Gazette, which is the monthly newsletter that comes from Charting the Life Course. All really great tools to help you move forward in your life course journey. Just one more mention about our UCEDD, our University Center on Excellence in Developmental Disability. These are some of the initiatives that they are working on in addition to the life course framework and tools. A lot of things, again, that are driven by what we've learned from Charting the Life Course. This is the systems change component. So there's efforts to address healthy living for people with disabilities. There's no wrong door, which means that when you show up for services, even if you show up at the wrong place, like the Division of Aging or Family Services, they can get you to the place you need to be because we're working together as a state. And that's the all principle in place. And then other initiatives happening at the UCEDD, early childhood innovation, disability health collective, brain injury, supported decision making. So lots and lots of really important things are incubating, and we're trying out new work to make sure that we're doing our very best for families and people with disabilities in Missouri. At the St. Louis ARC, we also have Tools in Action group once a month. So you can come and see how we're using the tools, or once you fill out your tools, you can bring them and share them with us. Or maybe you want to do a tool with a group of people that understand it. Maybe you want to problem solve around the star together. Come to the Tools in Action group. That's a great opportunity. St. Louis ARC hosts the Eastern Missouri Stakeholders Group, which is everybody in our region that uses Charting the Life Course. It's a great opportunity for self-advocates, families, professionals, and people outside of our field, like occupational therapists and foster care employees and nurses, to come together and talk about how they're able to use the Charting a Life Course principles. And if you work for the ARC, I'll come and do a departmental collaboration with you. That'd be wonderful. We also have on our ARC Connect intranet homepage, the Charting the Life Course tools are all available to you right there. If you don't work for the ARC, every tool on the Life Course page is downloadable, fillable, and open to the public. So you can always access those. And then the last but not least, Charting My Life Course is a 3-component training available through the UCEDD, through the Life Course Nexus, for self-advocates. So you go through 3 classes led by a person with a disability to help you fill out your own life course tools. And then once you complete that course, you get a certificate and you get to join a support group for self-advocates that are have completed the Charting My Life course, where they work together to problem solve and plan for their futures. So that concludes our presentation today. I hope that this is exciting for you. I hope you'll join me in a future Tools in Action group. But whatever you do, remember, it's all about the principles, not the tools. And you're the person that's going to change your own life. So go out and think about where it's important for you to start and how these tools might help you. So thanks for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.